Welcome to Enjoy the Journey podcast, where we interview expert entrepreneurs and thought leaders to help guide you in pursuit of financial freedom. Presented to you by Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, where we help service-based business owners remove cash flow bottlenecks, maximize their profits, and turn business profits into personal wealth. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Enjoy the Journey podcast. And I have a great guest here today to chat with Carole Issa, who is a leadership expert. Carole's had a great wealth of experience when it comes to leadership, going on her own journey, where she now helps entrepreneurs and business owners grow and scale their business by mastering their leadership from really a different perspective than I've seen before. So looking forward to sharing some of your genius. So Carole, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jackson. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So let's start back at the beginning, Carole. Let's talk about a little bit about your story and how you happened to come into leadership coaching.
Wow, that's a long story. So I'll try to go as fast as I can here and take the bits and pieces that are the most useful. So initially, I come from a technician background. So what I mean by this is that very much into my world, very happy between four walls, loving my computer, my cables, my microphone, so sound engineering more specifically. Work has been falling pretty much into my laps. I didn't have to really reach out to people or learn how to work with or through people. It was very challenging for me to be around people. So at the time, I remember that I used to feel awkward. It was very hard to start a conversation with strangers. You would see everyone else in the team going to parties, Friday drinks, all of that. I'll be hanging out in my room, reading some books, exploring new equipments, new software, and all of that. The other thing is that I had this feeling that I wanted to be more and to do more. I started to seize opportunities to create certification programs. So I come from the Middle East, from Lebanon, and we didn't really have this opportunity to expand our technical expertise. So I'm like, why not bring it back to the Middle East? And I started becoming the teacher around this and the go-to person. But here's the thing, I was very much focused on my hard skills. There was nothing that had to do with my soft skills. In fact, it didn't have a word back then. I didn't even know that it existed. I thought that I was doing okay. So the biggest challenge happened when I was asked to manage a recording studio. And so I had to move from being the one doing the thing, being the technician, to starting managing the business and having to look after people, to hire, to train, to upskill, and all of that. And I was 25 at the time. So number one, way too young. Number two, the age was not really the challenge there. It was that I really had no people skills. And even worse, I didn't really have anyone to model. So I was never in an environment that really had leadership skills or people who I could learn from. It was more a managerial environment. What it means is that you need to deliver on time and with the quality that the client is expecting. And it's all about that. And there was nothing else going on. So pretty much I did what I learned from other people who were managing me, and I tried to plug the same thing into my environment, and it did not work. It became very frustrating. I had the worst experience ever. I would have people clearly crying and walking out from the room and never coming back to the office. I would have people quitting out of the blue. I would have people not showing up to the training sessions that they were supposed to deliver. It was really going downhill. And I had no clue. I thought that my team was not a great team to work with. What's wrong with people? It was really hard for me to understand what was going on, and it was really frustrating. So at the time, what happened, fast forward maybe 10 years later, when I moved to Australia, I realized that my phone was not ringing anymore. Opportunities were not falling into my laps. I just landed in Australia with my suitcase, had no one here, no family, no friends, no nothing. And I was like, oh my God, it looks like something is missing and something's going on with me here. And this is where the biggest challenge happened, because I had to move from the comfort zone that I was in my environment where everyone knew me, everyone was calling me, projects would fall into my laps, into starting to creating opportunities for myself. And guess what's the first thing that needs to happen? People skills. So So from there, I started to expand, to take courses, to find coaches, to look for personal development books, which obviously helped. But I found, to be honest with you, that I always say this: coaching yourself goes as far as trying to tickle yourself. So, so, so I really had to start looking for more and working with people to teach me the skills that I didn't have. And pretty much very quickly, I fell in love with the world of personal development and learning about the psychology, not only from a people standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. And everything shifted since then. And the rest is really history. I'm not sure how far you want to go into details. I'm sure that you're going to dig where you need to.
Really interesting. I think we're very similar in terms of our personality types. I definitely identify as an introvert. And for a really long time, I never wanted to be a leader because, like what you said, I'd never really had anybody to model. And because all of the leaders and managers that I'd had over my career were arrogant, pompous pricks, to be fair. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I identified the way that they showed up as leaders as what leadership was. And it really wasn't. They were just a poor representation of leadership. But it's so common. I always hear this story that people like us, people who are more introverted and more technical, stumble into leadership, and we ultimately become very good at it. And because I think we're coming from it from a position of very different reasons than other people who are more extroverted and use it as a way of controlling power and manipulating people and all of this kind of stuff. So, in your experience, Carole, what results in these toxic leaders and managers? There obviously has to be a catalyst that results in those types of people being the way that they are and getting to their position.
Yeah, there are many reasons, Jackson. I believe the one that I come across the most, that is the most common one, is that they fall into the position and then do not have the curiosity to lean into what could be better done. So what I mean by this is they're not challenging what is. They're not challenging the status quo. Like, they're just taking it as is, doing the same, sorry for the term, shitty job that anyone else did before. They're not breaking the cycle. And also, I always talk about the parallel between parenting and leadership, because also there is this parallel that is also us creating the future with the kids that we are raising. So it's the same thing. So we need to break the cycle. So not having this curiosity or cannot be bothered. So it's more coming from a sense of authority, because I have the title, therefore I have the right to tell you what to do and you have to follow my orders. And this is where things start to become really a problem. The other thing is that combined with this, like in my case, where you get really good at what you do, and you are put into this managerial role that sometimes has a different name to it, like lead or whatever, but then it's just a word, and team lead or whatever that is. And what happens is that because of your hard skills, you become responsible for others, when in fact, it's not about the hard skills. It's so much more than that. Yes, of course, you need to know what the hell you're talking about, what's happening in terms of understanding the craft that you're leading and managing. But leadership is a completely different conversation. It's a completely different game. So if we don't have the curiosity to have a look at, hang on a minute, this is not working. How is it that we can do things differently, better, to challenge what is, to rock the boat? Then there is no way for us to learn leadership and lean into it, because it's messy. It's not something that is comfortable at all.
And I think this is really important. We found this ourselves, and because I saw this working in corporate and working in lots of different businesses, that people promote from within just because people are really good at what they do, that they think that they can replicate themselves, and it just doesn't work that way. And in our business, our general manager Nadia has never had any experience in financial services, and we put her as a general manager because of her soft skills, her ability to bring the best out of people. Because the reality is, she's not employed to have the hard skills; she's employed to bring the best out of the technicians who have the hard skills. I think that was a big epiphany moment for us. It was a little bit of luck and a little bit of calculated strategy. But I think a lot of business owners, particularly small business owners, really struggle with this. Because I know for myself, the biggest struggle that I had from transitioning to being a technician to a leader was sometimes when you're a technician, and the longer you are a technician, the better your hard skills become, the bigger the J curve is, right? Because you measure other people by sometimes impossible standards, right? Like, no one is ever going to be as good as me. How do you help small business owners overcome these I guess, these limiting beliefs that often hold them back from growing their business and achieving their goals?
It's very important to start working with who you are. So what I mean by this is that, so I have a pathway that I call the active leader pathway. And it's based on a pyramid, which is not about levels or who's good, who's bad, who's better, who's not. It's more about the stages that we go through as business owners as we step into a leadership role, or as managers, if you're working for someone equally. So the first thing that I observe, and when I say know yourself, is noticing where you are in the stages of leadership. And in a way, we cannot really skip the stages. We're going to have to go through them to learn what's going on. So the first stage becomes in the shape of either wanting to be liked, so become a people pleaser to get people. This is the thought, right? The belief that if I'm nice and I'm pleasing people, therefore they will do what I need them to do. The other flavor of that, which is the complete contrast with that, is the authoritarian or the dominant bossy attitude. So I am the manager, I am the business owner, therefore I'm going to boss you around and tell you what to do. So usually it's like a pendulum. And why do I say that? Is because if you start your journey with wanting to be liked, you start to realize that it's not working. There is this tendency usually, especially when you hear the classic way of giving you feedback, which is not the way that is definitely going to lead you where you need to be, is you need to be more authoritarian, have to put boundaries. So they swing in the other direction, opposite direction, that does not work either. So this is where we start usually in those two stages, either being very people pleasing or very dominant and bossy. So the next stage, when we realize that neither nor are working, and while going through this pendulum endlessly until we realize that we need to step up and change, we transform it into having a look at how is it that we can become the superhero. So what I mean by this is another flavor of that would be leading by example. Like you do or you demonstrate what needs to be done, and you would expect the team to over time learn and start doing it, modeling it, which is great. We're starting here to have some form of leadership. But here's the thing, if there are not other tools to support it, and there is not a clear plan on how is it that we're going to move the team from being reliant on us as team leader to become self-reliant, what ends up happening, it's going to exhaust the business owner or the manager. Because if the manager is not here or the business is not here, the team is like clueless. They don't know what to do. Unless they have seen something that has been demonstrated that they remember that they can model, which is not very sustainable. So this is where we start to move to the next level, which is usually happens to be an unresourceful one, because the person is like, this is exhausting. I've been demonstrating for a long time what needs to be done, and I think that they got it. So what they do, they like, I need to work on the business, not in the business. And they just rebel from the superhero role, and they move back into their den, telling the team, okay, you're going to lead the way. I've done enough of the superhero thing here. I've shown you, demonstrated enough what needs to be done. If you really, really need me, you can come and talk to me. But now I'm just in my den. I need to work on the business. And the team freaks out because it's like, what the hell is going on? So this is when we realize that it's not working and there's something missing here. So this is where you step into what I call active leadership, which means each one of these stages that you've learned, you've been actually doing as a manager or business owner unresourcefully. It is important to be empathetic and compassionate with others. It has nothing to do with people pleasing. This is the resourceful aspect of caring for others. So the very first stage. It is important to set healthy boundaries and being firm and kind. This is the, let's call it bossy, but it's not. It's actually being assertive and believing in the importance of boundaries that are healthy for you and for your team, so that you create the self-reliance culture. The third level, which is the resourceful aspect, instead of being always the superhero being there to save the day, is teaching the team how they can start now relying on themselves to do it, to see where the gap is. Is it that they cannot do it? That's why they're not doing it. So finding the way to develop a strategy for them to evolve and to learn the skills so that they are now confident to demonstrate it and now starting to develop other leaders in the team. Or is it that they do not want to do it? Is it a can't do it? Or is it a won't do it? And if it's a won't do it, then guess what? Sorry, dude. Bye-bye. So this is not the game that we're playing here. We're doing basketball here. You want to do football? It's not here. So, and then it's about developing the wisdom of the team members, regardless of where they at, whether they just started, whether they've been here for 5, 6, 7 years. It's developing this ongoing wisdom and teaching the whole team to tap into each other's wisdom. So the wise, the sage, everyone has wisdom to share, and developing different styles and flavors of leadership that we can all benefit from. So this is what I call active leadership.
I love it. Yeah, it does. And look, I think what this comes down to is the shades of grey of this, right? Because I think most people end up, as you said, playing at these extremes where they're too empathetic and they end up becoming a doormat to people in their business because they're so fearful of losing their people and they do everything to appease them, or being the kind of the dictator that micromanages and has to oversee absolutely everything, which is exhausting for everyone because no one likes to be micromanaged. And I'd probably say that most people don't want to micromanage others because it's exhausting to have to try and keep tabs on every single person's every overarching move. So I think what this comes down to is having structure and clarity, right? And I think if you've got structure and clarity when it comes to leadership, then people will do the right thing. And I think a big turning point for me, and I've seen this a lot, that a lot of leaders just pass the buck, right? They create excuses which actually can't be fixed, that people aren't capable or they're stupid or people are crazy. And when you have these beliefs, there's nothing you can do about fixing stupid or crazy. However, if you have the belief that the vast majority of people are neither stupid or crazy, the vast majority of people are capable, it's either that they don't have the confidence or they don't have the capability through way of training in order to go ahead with the task. And I think you're talking about this. It's about tapping into that wisdom and basically making sure they understand what's expected of them. So I think that's really important. So let's talk about some of the key measures of success that separate great leaders from terrible ones, aside from the micromanagement and playing at those extremes. So what are the common traits and characteristics in highly successful leaders in small business that you've seen, Carole?
I've been working in this space for the last 7 years. And over time, I started to realize certain patterns and certain similarities. And this is what actually led to creating the active leader pathway, the actual model that has 3 key pillars that I found were present with the leaders who were being successful on their journey. And these 3 pillars are: number 1, they were emotionally connected, switched on. So you want to call it emotional intelligence, emotionally smart, however you want to call it. So there has been a lot of work that has been done on this level. And to dig a little bit deeper into this pillar, the way I look at it is, number 1, knowing their map. So they are very aware of what their map looks like. They know where their strengths are, so leveraging those without overusing them. That's another level that most people do not realize. Overusing the strength also can work at the detriment of effective leadership. And then the other part is having a look at their stretches and the opportunities of growth, like the most relevant stretches that they need right now to develop, to really start leveraging them as well, this growth. The other part within the emotional intelligence pillar is, now that we know our map, how is it that we're going to start to help others tap into their map, to know their strength and their stretches, so that they can now learn on how to develop their strength and their stretches. So this is the bulk of how the pillar works. Something that you touched on, which also I work on in this pillar, is ownership and responsibility, which I call the 3 key pillars of emotional mastery. Now, knowing that we never arrive as leaders, there is always the next level and the next level. So it's something that we really look at developing and creating this ongoing muscle of wanting to developing this emotional mastery and being on this journey and being mindful of this. And it's about not blaming. It's about being aware. So the first part is bringing our awareness to what's working and what's not working, owning what's not working, and taking action. Because owning on its own doesn't lead anywhere. It's good to say, yeah, me, it's my fault. Yeah, I can see that. Then I do nothing about it. It's just as if nothing has happened. So really the third pillar is going to create the shift and the transformation that is needed, is taking action and having the courage to step into this world of being uncomfortable, being messy, being chaotic, and being okay to embrace this chaos, to come on the other end having mastered this skill that we are trying to master. So this is the first pillar of emotional intelligence or emotional mastery. The second key pillar is about being a powerful communicator. So something that you touched on also, which is manipulation, which is a lot of people ask me about that. Like, I don't want to manipulate people. I don't want to learn psychology to manipulate people. This is unethical. And this is one of the biggest distinctions that I make that I would love to share with the listeners, is that when we're looking for excellence in leadership, we're not looking at manipulation, we're looking at influence. And the big, massive distinction and difference between both is that manipulation is then when you are trying to lead someone to do something that's only good for you and not good for them. So it's a win-lose situation. Whereas influence is when you know where the person needs to be headed because you've walked the journey. You can see that they can do more, that they can be more, and that they can have and give more. Then you are leading the way, influencing them to make the step in the right direction. So it's good for them and it's good for you. It's a win-win situation. So with the powerful communicator pillar, we are actually working on learning how to influence effectively people who are on this mission with us. So learning how is it that we can, through communication, work with people and through people. And we do this through three key areas. So number one, learning communication through connection. So the power of connecting with the person. Number two, the flexibility around the way we communicate, because, for example, I'll always give the example of selling. Most of the time, people, when they're not well-rounded in selling, they end up selling to people they like the way they like to be sold to. This is not flexibility. Not everyone has the same language in the way they like to connect and sell and buy. So it's about creating this flexibility to buy into an idea, to sell the idea, and see how is it that we can communicate with people to walk with us on the journey, being flexible with the way we communicate with them. So learning this, it's a craft. Number three is the consistency with the way we communicate. So something that I come across a lot with managers and business owners that I work with is the lack of consistency in the way they communicate. So for example, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. They're not in the mood to be empathetic today, or they have a lot on their plate. They don't feel like having this difficult conversation with their team member or their client. So leadership is an always thing, ready to go anytime. It's not about how we feel. And this also is a skill that needs to be learned. So the consistency around the way we always care, we are always there, we are always supportive. We always are actually meeting the standards, no compromises. We are always matching the values and living the values and demanding this. This is something that is very important in the way we communicate with our team and with our clients too. The third key pillar is being a trust builder. So it's all about trust. And the way we work on this one is about starting to build trust within us. The idea is that we want to be clear on what is our purpose. Now, many people do not have an idea of what their ultimate purpose is, and that's okay. It's all about starting the journey of creating the first purpose that you can see right now that is clear to you, that you're moving towards, your why, what inspires you, and how to keep generating this inner compass and reflecting on it and upgrading it. So this year it might be X, next year it might be X plus 1, next year it might be Y. But as we start learning on how is it that we can keep reflecting back on the purpose, it actually all aligns. It's just a different view of the same purpose. It just evolves over time. So being mindful of the purpose and then building the values, which are, what is it that I value as a human being? And what are the values that I'm bringing into the world of my business that I'm going to be living by and bringing people along on this mission who value this as well? So what are the strong pillars that are going to hold this mission or vision together, this purpose, to make sure that we are on track? So knowing the values, eliciting them, and seeing what are the values that we are bringing into the business world. And then the third one is the commitment. So again, this is also very much related to the mood part of the spectrum. It's not when I feel like it or when I'm in the mood for it. It's just always. And creating this ability to, yes, we are human beings. Yes, we will slip. Yes, we will make mistakes, and that's okay. Yes, we will fail. We'll fall on our face, all of that. It's creating this ability to be committed, to stand up, dust ourselves off, and keep going. So the speed at which we're able to reset, stand up, and be back on track, and being open about it, being vulnerable about it, so that the team knows that we are humans too. So those are the three key pillars that I have come across in terms of finding what are the key traits of successful leaders that I really focus on when I'm developing active leaders.
I love this. And I think the reality is, like, for the businesses that have teams that are disengaged, where they're not productive, they've got high turnover, they're struggling to get good staff, it's because of the absence of this. And if I was to isolate one thing from our own perspective as business owners, the one thing that's helped us with all of that is it's that vision. And it's not just having the vision, but it's sharing the vision. Because people these days, particularly, don't want to just be in an organization to earn the most amount of money. People who are really good at what they do want to be connected to purpose and want to feel like they're making a difference. And if you can meet somebody at a level where you share the same values, you believe in the same things, and you come together to work as a collective towards that purpose, it's empowering work. And as opposed to just exchanging time for money, clocking in at 9 and clocking out at 5. Because at the end of the day, most businesses don't just want people who do the bare minimum. We want high performers. And the only way to attract high performers is to get people who align with your values. And if you're not prepared or comfortable to share your values, then you're never going to attract those people.
Absolutely, 100%. It's about connecting with it at a deeper level, because fulfillment is so important. This is what drives us. This is the inner inspiration that keeps inspiring us every day, where we don't need to look at external motivators. And whenever we are facing challenges as we move forward, because we are going to be, whether we are a part of a team or we are an owner, business owner, this is what's going to help us keep moving forward and overcome those challenges. Because otherwise, every slight pebble is just going to derail us. And we're like, that was the wrong way. I'm just going to go and try something else. And we keep moving around looking for a sense of direction, but then we can't find any. And this is very depressing and frustrating at the end.
It is very demoralizing. And I think the critical skill set here is resilience, right? And this is the hard part. I think a lot of leaders and a lot of small business people, particularly in kind of 2020 and beyond, is we've got these impossible standards that are being imposed upon us. There's all of these marketing messages everywhere of these hugely successful entrepreneurs who've achieved this overnight success and been on this really simple upwards trajectory in business that looks absolutely effortless. And I know that even myself, from time to time, I find myself, I'm like, wow, how's that person had it so easy? And I guarantee that they haven't. They only present the best parts of their journey, which is the reason why we have these conversations, to really help people understand that it's not all sunshine and lollipops. And I guess in your experience, Carole, how much does just being resilient and being prepared to do the same thing for extended periods of time play into being a good leader?
Wow, this is so important. I would say it requires a lot of patience. Like many people say, business is not a sprint, it's a marathon. What I found out, it's a series of sprints, actually. It's not really a long marathon. It's having this ability to learn when is it that we need to sprint, take a rest, and then sprint again. And this requires a lot of resilience, because at the beginning, we're not going to get it right. And every time there is something new, because as we start scaling as a business, as we start growing, and as a manager as well, as things start to get more and more challenging, there is always something that is going to be outside of the comfort zone. So the ability to learn how to have a great relationship with fear, managing it and stepping into generating the courage that we need to say, all right, it's going to be messy. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go through the ups and downs. I might be burnt out, and I'm going to learn what it looks like to be burnt out, so I next time learn to do it better. It's inevitable. So being there to back ourselves and being resilient around being okay to go through the sprints as we move forward on this long marathon, if you want to call it a marathon, and building this also stamina. And as we start doing it, I'm not sure about you, Jackson, but you start to see that you can take more on. Like if I were to look back 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago to what I'm able to take on today, I'll be like, this is crazy. I would have never been able to do that much during a day, a week, a month, or having so many things that I'm attending to at the same time. So it's funny because sometimes, and I'm not sure again about you, but we forget to look back to see how far we've come, the impossible standards. Sometimes we are being very tough on ourselves and we're like, how come I'm not there yet? And it's like, dude, hang on a minute. Have you celebrated how far you've come? So it's very important to start having this healthy relationship with ourselves where we are okay to give ourselves a pat on the back to say, okay, go for it. You're going to learn it. It's going to be messy. Be okay with it. Be okay with the chaos. You're going to come on the other end with a lot of skills, amazing growth. And now, which makes you an even more impactful leader for others. So you can now contribute even better to other people in their world. So my growth is other people's growth as well. So it's a responsibility also that we have, because if we just stay where we are, guess what? How's it that we're being useful to others? Doesn't help.
100%. I distinguish an important thing around this myself because I had impossible standards and I was always pushing the next thing. And the big thing that I learned through actually studying Stoicism is acknowledging the difference between enough and extra. And I think we both need to set those milestones of, okay, I need to know what enough is, because I think as entrepreneurs, it's sometimes intrinsic to us to always be pursuing the next thing. Like I have no intention to retire. I want to. I can see a milestone that I'm working towards now, but once I get it, there's always going to be the next thing. But it's about not just continuing to chasing those impossible standards, because it can be exhausting. And knowing that you have enough and anything above and beyond that is extra makes it fun to play the game.
Yes, absolutely. And not forgetting that you need to look after you along the way, because like I said, you will burn out. We will burn out. And it's inevitable, because we need to learn what burnout looks like so that we know where the limit is. Again, when we go to extreme, overusing the what's next, it's unsustainable, and it works at the detriment of looking after us. So like the very famous metaphor, you need to put the mask of oxygen on you before you start putting it on others. So this is also part of learning to be resilient. Resilience is just not just about going through the hard yards and keeping chasing what's next and keep on growing. It's also about learning to recharge and look after us. And I think this is one of the most challenging parts, where we have to put the brake, and we don't want to, because we think we can just get that little extra bit before we put the brake. And then guess what? The next thing we know, we're just in bed for a month and we're like, it looks like I overdid it here. So
I think so. Yeah, it's interesting phenomena, because I found it myself that I set a really impossible pace through COVID and was working ridiculous hours, because really being locked down, there wasn't much else to do but to work. But the thing about burnout is that you don't necessarily recognize it until you experience time out of the hustle, and it's there, it's right in your face. And it was only when I actually took time out and reduced my hours and reduced my workload that I go, wow, like I was really run down and I was just doing far too much. And now I've created a business where I can work 3 days a week and I can just focus on the things that I really enjoy doing. And I have that freedom and flexibility, which is critical, because I think there's so many business owners out there who are operating on 2 cylinders that don't even realize it.
Yes, and it's a skill. We learn that. This is, which is part of resilience again.
Amazing. So Carole, this has been great. So who's a target client for you? Who are you looking to work with?
So I work with business owners who have a small team or are looking to scale into having a bigger team. And usually the biggest challenge that they face is how is that we're going to maintain the quality and the spirit of the core that we have now, because we're like a small team, 5 to 10 people, and now we're about to scale. So the biggest fear that they have is how's that we're going to maintain the spirit that is now called, of course, the culture or the environment that we have, and make sure that it's maintained over time. So I work with them to help them develop their leadership skills so that they can have the confidence to deliver more influence and have more impact around them while scaling as a business and developing leadership skills for themselves and start developing leaders within their team.
Beautiful. Amazing. And if somebody's listening to this and they wanted to get in contact with you to chat further, how are they best to get in touch?
Awesome. So direct email or my website. So it's carole@caroleissa.com. My website is leadershipactivators.com.au.
Beautiful. Awesome. We'll include those links in the show notes. So, Carole, if you had to get, there's already been so many value bombs, but if you had to give one last piece of advice for people to take away and go and implement, what would that be?
What I would say is learn to pause. This is, I think, the biggest challenge that I come across a lot. Like we shared earlier, when we were talking about just keep like go, 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 go. Learning to pause and appreciating the pause and what it will bring for you. Because when we pause, you might feel like we're taking a step back, but actually it will help us take 10 steps forward because we're now way more clear, we have recharged, and we have all the energy that we need to keep moving forward to hit the next milestone.
Beautiful. I think that's great advice. Carole, this has been a great conversation. I'm really excited to share this with the audience. So guys, if you want to find out more about Carole and what she's up to and how she might be able to help you level up your leadership in your business, feel free to follow the links in the show notes. Look forward to catching you next time. Carole, thanks for making the time and look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Thank you so much, Jackson. It's been great having this conversation with you.